Hello everyone, I did the battery capacity test for the Runhood power station. I did it in 3 different ports, one for the 12 volt cigarette port, one for the USB-C port, and of course one for the AC port. Actually, I did 3 times for each one, and the way I did it is that I charge it all the way to the full 100% and then discharge it in different rates. Sometimes have the maximum rate, sometimes at the maximum rate, and then charge it back up again and compare those two numbers to see how many percentage we get out of each port. Let's start with 12 volt, the cigarette lighter port. When I discharge it at 120 watt, the maximum I believe, the number I'm getting is that 69% and 71%. So that's the maximum discharge rate at 120 watts. So when I discharge it at 60 watts constantly, I get about 74 to 75%. I have some pictures to show you all the numbers that I get. That's pretty good for 12 volt battery, especially when it's regulated. So the discharge rate at 120 watts, to recap, the discharge rate at 120 watts, I got about 71% average. And then when the discharge rate is around 60 watts, I got about 74%. The next one is the USB-C, also the same practice. I charge it to the full and then discharge it at the maximum rate for this USB-C, which is 100 watts. I got, I got about 79%. So I charge it all the way to 100% using a USB-C port, and I also discharge it using USB-C port. At 100 watt, I got 78%. And when I discharge at about half of that, about 50 to 60 watt, I got 84 and 84% both times. So that's a pretty good number right there. So for this category, I charge it using USB-C and discharge it using USB-C as well. Let's talk about the AC port. For the AC, let's see here. When I discharge it at 600 watt, which is the maximum for this Runhood power station. So for the AC port at 1C at 600 watt, I got 69 to 70%. And when I discharge it at half of that, which is about 250 to 300 watt constantly, I get a higher number at 74% using the AC, which is pretty typical for AC because the power station needs to use the inverter. Usually the AC number is lower than the DC. That's typical. One thing to note about the AC port is that when I'm doing the 600 watt discharge, when it go down to completely zero and I'm charging it back up, it's not taking any charge. So I found a way to go around is that I need to take out the battery, let it cool outside for about 15 to 20 minutes, and also let the empty space cool by itself, or using a fan is up to you. And then after about 15-20 minutes, I can put it back in and I plug in the charging. It starts charging again. I don't know if anyone else experienced that, but if I discharge it at 600 watt and then when I go to 0%, when I start charging it again, the circle is not spinning. It's not taking any charge at all. and I will do that for 30 minutes without even charging anything. The screen will be on, but it won't charge at all for 30 minutes at least when I try it. So I think is that when you discharge at 600 watt, the component inside is still hot, and then when you plug the charging cable back in, it will turn on the screen, but it's too hot for it to charge. So my go around is take off the battery individually and let it cool outside, and after about 15-20 minutes put it back in and then plug in again, and then it will start charging. That's the only problem I faced. Other than that, everything else works perfectly, and the number is pretty good. So the only takeaway here is that if you don't have to, don't discharge it at the maximum rated power. If you don't have to discharge a 600 watt, you get more percentage out of the battery. I'll say about 5%. If you don't have to discharge, that's the AC port. If you don't have to discharge 100 watt at the USB-C port, if you only discharge about half of that, you get more battery out of this. Also, same thing for the 12 volt. You get about 2 or 3% more for the 12 volt. Yep, that's about it.